All right, hello everyone. Today we are going to be talking about speakers for your desk. As you can see, I'm working on building out my kind of ultimate work from home desk. I've got bias lighting, a standing desk, 3 4K monitors, monitor arms, cable management. I've got a little crazy, but I'm missing one thing, and that is the perfect pair of speakers. And I'm hoping that one of these will be the solution to my problem. So here what I'm considering. I've done a lot of research online, and these are the options. So I have the iLoud micro monitors, I have the Audioengine A2 Plus, Kanto YU2, the all-new Kanto ORAs, and I'm also considering the Swans OS-10s. They're a little bit too big for my setup, but I think they might be a decent option for a lot of people, so I'm including them in this review as well. And a bit about me. I am not a hardcore audiophile. I'm just a guy that likes tech and that likes good sounding speakers. I've owned things like DVLA Phantoms in the past and other nice speakers. So that's kind of the prerogative I bring. If you're looking for like frequency response charts and things like that, probably not the video for you. But if you're looking for a kind of balanced review from someone that's interested in sound quality, but also interested in aesthetics, size, price, things like that, that's what I'm going to be talking about. And honestly, I bought these all with my own money. I went a little crazy, and I tried to find good comparison videos for kind of this range of speakers, and I couldn't find anything. So I decided to buy them myself, do this review, and hopefully help a few other people along the way with this decision as well. All right, let's get started. First, let's talk about the criteria I used to decide which speakers I was going to review in the first place. First, and probably most importantly, is they had to be small. I just don't have very much space on this desk. You can see it's pretty darn tiny. So only a small speaker is going to work here. Number 2 is sound quality. You know, I'm going to be listening to these things all day, every day, and I know what a good sounding speaker sounds like. So that's super important for me. And then number 3, they had to be powered. I didn't want to have a passive speaker and have to deal with an amp. I just wanted something that was simple and plug and play. So that ultimately all these speakers check those boxes, maybe with the exception of size with this one, but we'll talk about that. Yeah, there's a few others also that I could have considered, like the Genelec 8010 or the Van2 Transparent Zero. I've heard great things about those speakers, but honestly, 5 is probably a little too many, even for this. So maybe I'll do those in a future review. We'll see. So yeah, with all that being said, let's get in and talk about each speaker individually. Let's talk about the iLoud micro monitor. This speaker first came out in 2016, and it has not been updated since, so it's a little bit long in the tooth, and it costs $350 new. But I will say, if you do any reading online on Reddit or audiophile forums, everyone raves about this speaker. They just praise it for its sound quality, for its bass response, and honestly, I was a little skeptical at first, but after listening to it, they are onto something. It's pretty impressive. We'll talk more about the sound quality, but this is an amazing speaker. It comes in both black and white. It's plastic, and it looks kind of like it came out of the 90s, and honestly, that's one of the biggest detractor or like negative points I can say about it. It does have a nice 3/8 inch mounting point at the bottom, like you put it on a microphone stand, and it also has a built-in kickstand, which is super handy. Also, what I'll say about this is it's the only speaker in the whole group that has a grill and that can have a grill. None of these support that. You cannot remove this grill. But I hear a lot about people like bringing speakers with them, throwing them in a suitcase. This speaker feels solid, and I would probably be only comfortable putting this one in a bag and traveling with it. Everything else here is going to be pretty delicate. This one feels good. So yeah, and it's also got a port in the front, which is nice. So it allows you to put it kind of closer to a wall and not have to worry about any interference or booming from that. So yeah, that's kind of the aesthetics of it. Now let's talk about the inputs. So you can see it has a 3.5 millimeter jack as well as auxiliary in inputs. And then it also has Bluetooth. The kind of downside of this speaker versus a bunch of these other ones, it doesn't have a USB input, which is nice to have a digital wired input so you don't have to worry about any interference, things like that. So I would love to see that on the speaker. Unfortunately, it doesn't have it. Another interesting thing about the speaker that I won't spend too much time on, but it has this EQ kind of panel right here. And this allows you to basically set different shelves for different frequencies to allow you to tune it to your environment, your preferences, the way it's sitting on your desk. It's a very cool feature. None of the other speakers have that. Yeah, and then in terms of output, it does not have a sub out or anything like that. I will say the bass response on this is amazing. I'll get into that more, but if you do want to use this with a subwoofer, it's going to be a little bit more complicated than some of these other options that have a sub out. And then it does have a 4-pin output for the other speaker, and it comes with a cable. It's a little annoying for these like proprietary cables, but I get why they do it because they're bi-amp, so there's a separate amp for the tweeter and the woofer, so I'll forgive it. And now let's talk about what's most important though, the sound quality. And honestly, it's phenomenal. It blows 2 of these speakers out of the water, and it hangs with some other 2, which we'll talk about in a bit. But just in general, this thing is absolutely outstanding. The only criticism that I have of it is that after listening to it for a kind of a prolonged amount of time is kind of listening fatigue, because it has really kind of bright and clear and energetic mids and highs. Like when you first listen to it, it's really exciting and you can hear the high notes and you can hear the vocals so clearly. But after like an hour, 30 minutes even, turning it off, and I kind of feel like subliminally relieved just because it was a little grating. And I think this makes sense for it being like a studio like reference monitor. But in terms of just using it every day to listen to music, more casual things, that's my one hesitation here. Well, that as far as sound. Apart from that, it's amazing. And the other hesitation is just the looks. What can I say? I'm kind of shallow, and this thing just doesn't look that good. And if I'm going to be spending all this money and having this beautiful desk setup, I want a speaker that looks great. And that's another thing that gives me pause about this. But we'll talk about how it compares to the other speakers a little bit later. But yeah, this is an amazing speaker, and I'm very impressed. All right, let's talk about the next one. Let's talk about the Audioengine A2 Plus. So here this is. This was originally introduced in 2007 as a non-Bluetooth version, and then in 2013 they updated it to have Bluetooth. It costs $270 on Amazon, and these speakers are everywhere. If you look, so many people have the speaker on their desk, and I think part of it is just because it's a decent sounding speaker, and then it's also just like got the classic minimalist aesthetic. It comes in black, white, and red. So from a design perspective, it's very elegant. You can see in the front, there are no volume knobs, no light. It's just super, super simple. There is a front-facing port as well. So again, it allows it to be closer to the wall without having to worry about any interference there. And then on the back, you can see, let's talk about inputs. It has RCA input. It has a 3.5 millimeter jack. It has a Bluetooth input for digital input, which is great. And then it also has aux output as well. And then it just has these traditional ports to connect it to its sibling speaker. The thing that really annoys me and I'm pissed off about is that it has a proprietary power port. It's this weird 3-pin thing. I've never seen it. And that frustrates me because there's no reason for that. So that sucks. And then, yeah, we have a volume knob here as well. This specific speaker, you can see, does have a 1/4-inch mount point on the bottom. The latest version of the speaker, I've heard that they actually took that off because it had some problems with the cabinet cracking around this. So I have it. Don't expect yours to have it. So what else can I say about the speaker? It's fine. From a sound perspective, it tries its very best. It's got a little 2.5-inch woofer and a little 3/4-inch tweeter. It sounds very bright, and it sounds fine, but it's still constrained by the laws of physics. You're just not going to get that good of a sounding speaker, especially with like the lower tones with a small woofer like this. And relative to the iLoud, which has a 3-inch woofer, this just is in a totally separate and worse league. I can see why it's so popular because it's decent sounding, and it's very small and it's good looking. So it's like a overall fine compromise if you're not super, super concerned about sound quality / like having a good like bass response. Maybe if you're gonna bring a sub into the picture, this would make sense. But just as like a standalone, it's fine. Yeah. All right, so we're gonna move on to the next option. Let's talk about the Kanto ORA. So this speaker came out in October 2023, so it's a very new speaker. It costs $350, so it is not cheap. It's kind of like a mini version of Kanto's popular Tuck speaker. And honestly, doing some reading about this, it's been getting rave reviews everywhere. Again, I was a little bit skeptical of that, so I wanted to try it out for myself. First, I really like the design and aesthetic of this. You can see it has a nice like waveguide for the tweeter. The woofer is 3 inches. The tweeter's 3/4 inches, and they're both quite recessed into the speaker, which really focuses it on you. On the front, you can see it has a little tiny LED, which passes my test. It's not like super obnoxious. It's very subtle, so thumbs up there. We also have a volume knob. That's also a power knob. That's also a mode knob. Super easy to use. Thumbs up there as well. Moving around to the back of the speaker, you can see we have a 1/4 inch mounting port, and then we have our inputs. So we have a USB-C input, which is great. So a digital wired input, which is super important to me. We also have aux in ports as well. We do not have a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, which is just frustrating. It's not that big of a deal because you could just use a 3.5 to aux, but they should have included it. Also, obviously, you've got Bluetooth. And we also have a sub out. So if you do want to integrate a sub into your system, this will make that really easy to do. In terms of connectors as well, we have this 4-pin port for its paired speaker, and then obviously just a standard DC in port there as well. You'll note that the port is on the back of this rather than the front, unlike some of the other speakers. So that might cause some issues with how close you put it to the wall, something you'll have to be thinking about depending on your setup. I had it decently close to the wall, and I didn't have any issues really, but something to be mindful of. So yeah, that's the overall speaker. I love the design of it. I really wish they made it in white. Right now, they only have it in this like satin black. It is a little plasticky feeling. You know, this is an expensive speaker. I wish it felt a little bit nicer, but what are you gonna do? I really like the aesthetic though of it in general. So yeah, thumbs up there. And now the most important thing though, how does it sound? It sounds awesome. It's really, really good as well. I'll say comparing it to the iLoud Micro, like they are in very close contention. The iLoud Micro has slightly better bass than this, but it's just slightly. But I'll say after listening to this for a few hours and I turning it off, I want to keep on listening. I'm sad that I turned it off. It's just super easy to listen to, and it has nice, mids and highs. It's very balanced, but it doesn't have that kind of listening fatigue that I was experiencing when I was listening to the Micro. It just wasn't grating on my ears, unlike the Micro. So yeah, I'm a really big fan of the way this thing sounds. It is excellent. It's really impressive given its size. And ultimately, I think this is a really nice kind of mixture of size, performance. Honestly, the one big downside is the cost, because this is not a cheap speaker, but it might be the one I'd keep. We'll see. All right, let's talk about the next one. Let's talk about the Kanto YU2, the second speaker by Kanto on this list. So this was originally released back in 2013, and first thing, it's aesthetically so similar to the Audioengine A2 Plus, which that design originally came out, I think, 2007. So who do you think was inspired by who here? The one kind of difference, at least in the front of the speaker aesthetically, is this has this LED on the front. And I'll say this LED haunts me. It's just so bright and it's like protrudes, and I hate it, but I'm a little crazy. It probably won't bother 95% of people. I don't love that. But yeah, we have a 3/4 inch tweeter. We have a 2.5 inch woofer. And yeah, it comes in this nice white satin finish as well as a black. And yeah, on the back, you can see it's rear ported. So again, think about how close it's going to be to your wall. And then we have our standard output for the secondary speaker, volume and power knob, 3.5 millimeter input, a USB digital input, which I think is important. Obviously, it also has Bluetooth, and that it does have a sub-out port. And the sub-out port is nice because Kanto also makes a really nice small sub. And I think if you're going to pair this with a sub, you'd have a pretty great speaker setup. Yeah, well, we'll talk about the sound quality in a second. And then it has just a standard power input. It does come with some little feet that you can use if you want to just set it right on your desk. Alternatively, you can buy the Kanto speaker stand for like 20, 30 bucks. So, how does this bad boy sound? It sounds good. It is a good sounding speaker. It and the Audioengine, I think, are right on par with each other. Maybe the sound's like a little bit worse, but like I've been listening to them back to back and switching in between. The difference is minor. I'd say maybe this sounds a little bit more muffled and muddy than the Audioengine. But honestly, I'm just like nitpicking. It's a good sounding speaker for what it is, but again, it has a 2.5-inch woofer. You don't get great bass response with this woofer that small. If you're going to pair it with a sub, great. And if you don't mind having kind of suppressed or mild bass response, again, I think this is an absolutely fine speaker. It makes a lot of sense for a lot of people. It's very compact. It's very elegant. Yeah, but it just doesn't have the greatest bass response. The other thing I'd say, this is $50 cheaper relative to the Audioengine. I wouldn't fault you if you wanted to save $50 and got this instead. They're so close. They're both very similar in design, aesthetic, performance. And yeah, this pairs really nicely with the Kanto sub. So if you're thinking about getting a sub, this could be the speaker for you. All right, let's move on to our next speaker. Let's talk about the Swans OS-10s. So first, these speakers are way bigger than everything else I'm considering. Let's just compare it. Here's the iLoud Micro. Here's the Swan. You can see this is just a much, much, much larger speaker than everything else. And because of that, I'm disqualifying it from consideration from my desk. But I'm including it in this review because I think it's important. Because I think a lot of people have desks that are probably a bit bigger than mine. And if your desk is bigger, this might be the speaker for you. Let's talk about it. So first, we have a 4-inch woofer and a 3/4-inch tweeter. There's a little touch panel on the top, which is pretty annoying, but once you turn it on and you have it set to the right input, you don't have to use it again. And yeah, overall, I think the front of it's pretty handsome. I do not like the kind of fabric cover side of it. To me, this makes it feel like some shitty Amazon speaker that costs $30. But that's, again, personal preference. Another thing I don't like about it is it has a freaking power cable that you cannot remove from it. Why? Why do that? Whatever. As far as inputs, obviously it has Bluetooth. It also has optical. It's the only one in this that has that. Has a coax input, has aux input as well. It uses the same 4-pin cable to go to its partner speaker, and it is rear ported. So this speaker sounds phenomenal. It is so good. It has excellent bass response. It has excellent clarity. It is just a very, very, very good sounding speaker. And it costs $160 normally on Amazon, and then down to, I think, $140 or so when it's on sale. Value for money, this speaker cannot really be beat, especially relative to all these other options. So if you can fit a bigger speaker, just stop your search. Get this. Try it. It is a phenomenal sounding speaker. The bass is excellent. Its clarity is excellent. Its mids and highs are excellent. It is a really, really good speaker. Unfortunately, it's just too big for me, so I'm disqualifying it, but it might not be too big for you. All right, let's go to my closing thoughts. Quick note, while I'm editing this, I'm going to also be doing another video where I record each one of these playing a variety of different genres using this, and that should allow you to get a pretty good sense of what all these speakers sound like independently, so you don't have to just listen to my opinion. I'll be uploading that in the next week or so, so be sure to subscribe to the channel to hear that. We have talked about all these speakers, and now it's time to decide which one I'm going to keep. So I've listened to all these for about 2 weeks now and compared them. I even bought a mixer so I could like switch in between all of them at any given point to really be able to isolate how they differ. And yeah, after that experience, it became abundantly clear to me that I'm not going to be getting the Kanto YU2 or the Audioengine A2 They're fine speakers, but they're just not remotely as good sounding as the others. The bass just isn't there as you'd expect when you have a woofer that's so small. I don't fault them. I think that they're a decent compromise if you're really looking for a tiny speaker and you're on a budget. Fine, no worries. I think you can do well with either of those. I'd probably go for the Kanto and save the $50. The Swan, like I mentioned, good speaker. I'm excluding it. Too big for my desk. But if you have space for it, no brainer, get that one. So between the iLoud Micro and the Kanto ORA, I would go for the Kanto ORA. This speaker, just aesthetically, I really like the way it looks, and I'm shallow, and I love the way it sounds. It isn't abrasive. I can listen to it for a long period of time. It has great bass. It has great mids. It has great highs. The sound stage is excellent. Like I really have very little critique for a speaker this small. It is just excellent. And yeah, the iLoud Micro, if I was traveling more and I wanted something that was a little bit more durable, I would 100% go for this. Having the grill built in is great. It's also a little bit smaller, a little bit more durable. Has a built-in kickstand. You know, the kickstands on the Kanto, you've got to buy extra. And it also has, I think, a better mounting option. But yeah, it was just the fact that A, it's ugly as sin, my opinion, and B, that the highs and mids are just a little bit too aggressive. So after prolonged listening, I was just kind of fatigued and happy to have it turned off, that I wouldn't want to have this as my everyday, just like music listening speaker. Still a fantastic speaker. You can't go wrong if you buy this. But for me and my audio preferences, I go with the Aura. All right. So thank you so much for listening to me blabber on about speakers. I hope this was helpful. Leave me some feedback or comments. Let me know what you're going to ultimately get in the comments below. Also, a thumbs up would go a long way. Again, I bought all these speakers with my own money, so we really appreciate your support there. Also, there's links in the description. Yes, they're affiliate links. I would love it if you would use them if you're going to be buying some of these speakers. Help support me. I'm not really a professional YouTuber. I'm kind of trying my hand at this, and any little bit of help from you guys goes a long way to hopefully allow me to continue making videos like this. So, thank you so much, and I'll see you on the next one.